The JonBenet Ramsey murder mystery, one of the most high-profile and perplexing cases in American history, remains unsolved despite over 2 decades of investigation. On the morning of December 26, 1996, the 6-year-old beauty queen was discovered missing from her home in Boulder, Colorado. Hours later, her parents, John and Patsy Ramsey, found a ransom note demanding $118,000 for their daughter's safe return. Tragically, JonBenet's lifeless body was discovered in the basement of their home, not far from where she had last been seen. The cause of death was determined to be a blow to the head, followed by strangulation with a cord, leaving the police and public alike stunned. The case quickly drew intense media attention, as rumors, theories, and public scrutiny centered on the Ramsey family. The ransom note, which appeared to be written by someone with knowledge of the family's finances, raised questions about whether the kidnapping was real or if the crime had been staged. Additionally, there were no signs of forced entry, which led investigators to focus on the possibility that the killer was someone close to JonBenet, someone familiar with the home. The initial investigation was plagued with errors, including mismanagement of evidence, failure to follow standard procedures, and the controversial decision to initially exonerate the Ramseys as suspects. Over the years, a myriad of theories and potential suspects emerged, but no definitive answers were ever reached. Many theories focused on the Ramsey family members. Some speculated that Patsy, JonBenet's mother, may have accidentally killed her daughter during an episode of rage or a discipline issue gone wrong, with the ransom note being an attempt to cover up the crime. Others pointed to John Ramsey, JonBenet's father, as the potential murderer, suggesting that he might have been involved in staging the crime scene. However, neither of these theories provided concrete evidence. The case also saw a variety of outsiders being accused, with one of the most prominent being a former school teacher named John Mark Carr. In 2006, Carr was arrested in Thailand after claiming he had been involved in JonBenet's death. However, his confession was inconsistent with the known evidence, and DNA tests eventually proved that he was not involved. The case against Carr quickly fell apart, adding to the complexity of the mystery. Another significant angle of the investigation was the presence of DNA evidence, which was collected from the crime scene. In 2008, new DNA tests on the evidence suggested the presence of an unknown male's genetic material, ruling out the Ramseys as the source. This new evidence revived suspicions of an intruder, though no suspect has ever been definitively identified. For years, the Boulder Police Department struggled to make any meaningful progress on the case. With mounting frustration and a lack of conclusive evidence, the investigation became a target of public criticism, with many questioning the competence of law enforcement in solving such a high-profile case. In 2008, after more than a decade of intense media coverage, public scrutiny, and numerous theories, the Boulder District Attorney's Office formally cleared John and Patsy Ramsey of any involvement in their daughter's death. Yet the mystery continued to overshadow their lives, as the couple was never truly able to clear their name in the court of public opinion. JonBenet Ramsey's mother, Patsy, passed away from cancer in 2006, and the case remains unsolved to this day. The murder of JonBenet remains one of America's most haunting unsolved mysteries, a story that continues to captivate the public's imagination. Theories still abound.
Experienced people, this was not a hard case to solve. Shouldn't have been a hard case to solve. And that's what should have happened. And it didn't, because they didn't have experienced people.
And while some believe the truth will eventually come to light, others argue that the case will remain a tragic enigma forever. While the official investigation into JonBenet's death has cooled, the case remains open, and new technologies and investigative methods continue to offer hope to those who believe the mystery can still be solved. However, with each passing year, the likelihood of uncovering new evidence that could definitively close the case becomes more uncertain. In the years since JonBenet's death, her story has left an indelible mark on American culture, with documentaries, books, and media reports continuing to revisit the case, offering new insights and reigniting the debate over who was responsible for the murder. The disappearance of Brian Schaffer is one of the most baffling missing person cases in modern history. On the night of March 31, 2006, the 27-year-old medical student vanished without a trace in Columbus, Ohio, leaving behind a mystery that has haunted investigators and his loved ones for years. Despite extensive searches and countless theories, Brian's fate remains unknown. Brian Randall Schaffer was a promising medical student at The Ohio State University. Born on February 25, 1979, he grew up in Pickerington, Ohio, a suburb of Columbus. He was known for his charisma, intelligence, and warm personality. Friends and family described him as driven and deeply caring, with a passion for music and dreams of starting his own band. By early 2006, Brian was in his second year of medical school, balancing rigorous studies with his personal life. However, the year had been tough for him. His mother, Renee, had passed away from cancer just weeks before his disappearance. Though Brian appeared to be coping, he was undoubtedly grieving. On the evening of March 31st, Brian decided to go out with friends to celebrate the start of spring break. He and his friend, William Clint Florence, began the night with dinner at a steakhouse before bar hopping in Columbus's University District. Eventually, they ended up at the Ugly Tuna Saloona, a popular bar near campus. Surveillance footage captured Brian, Clint, and another friend, Meredith Reed, entering the bar around 1:15 in the morning on April 1st. The three were seen socializing, drinking, and enjoying themselves. At one point, Brian was caught on camera talking to two women outside the bar. He then re-entered alone, and this was the last confirmed sighting of him. When the bar closed at 2 in the morning, Clint and Meredith waited outside, but Brian never appeared. Assuming he had left on his own, they eventually went home. The following day, Brian's girlfriend, Alexis Wagner, became concerned when she couldn't reach him. They had plans to leave for a vacation in Miami on April 3rd, and it was unlike him to ignore calls or texts. By April 2nd, Brian's family and friends reported him missing. The Columbus Police Department launched an investigation, which soon revealed the bizarre nature of his disappearance. The Ugly Tuna Saloona was in a busy entertainment district with numerous surveillance cameras. Police reviewed hours of footage, but found no evidence of Brian leaving. While cameras captured patrons coming and going, he was never seen exiting through any of the main doors. This led investigators to speculate that he either slipped out through an unmonitored back exit or was still inside when the bar closed. The search for Brian was extensive. Police interviewed dozens of people, including Clint, Meredith, and the two women he spoke to outside. No leads emerged. Cadaver dogs searched the bar and surrounding areas, but no trace of Brian was found. Despite repeated efforts, his whereabouts remained a mystery. Many questions remain about Brian Schaffer's disappearance. Investigators acknowledge surveillance blind spots may have allowed him to leave unnoticed. Suspicion lingers over Clint Florence, who refused a polygraph, though he was never named a suspect. Some believe Brian could be alive under a new identity, but no sightings confirm this. His disappearance devastated his family. His father, Randy, tirelessly searched until his tragic death in 2008. His brother Derek keeps his memory alive, while his girlfriend Alexis struggled to move on. A call to Brian's phone in September 2006 briefly rang, but it was later deemed a glitch. The mystery persists due to limited evidence, surveillance gaps, and divided theories. The case continues to haunt investigators and true crime enthusiasts. Despite years of searching, Brian's fate remains unknown, leaving his loved ones without closure. On the 23rd of March, 2010, the Guevara family returned from a trip to their home in Mexico. That evening, the parents tucked their 2 daughters into bed, unaware that it would be the last time they would see one of them alive. The following morning, the family's nanny, Erica, entered 4-year-old Pet Guevara Farah's room to wake her, only to find the bed empty. She searched frantically, turning everything upside down in the room, but the little girl was nowhere to be found. After exhausting all possible hiding spots, Erica alerted the children's mother, Lizette Farah, who immediately contacted the authorities. The investigation into Pet's disappearance began almost immediately, but the case baffled everyone involved.
Su familia buscó por todo el departamento y el edificio, pero Farah nunca apareció. No hubo señales que dieran a indicios de un robo o un secuestro. Las chapas de las puertas estaban intactas, así como las ventanas y todos los accesos a la residencia.
Desperate to find their daughter, the family sought public assistance. The Attorney General's office quickly put together missing person posters, explaining Pet's situation, and plastered them all over the region. Meanwhile, Lizette's sister Arlette posted pictures of Pet on social media, and these posts quickly went viral, turning the disappearance into a national headline. Lizette later appeared on television, pleading with whoever might have taken Pet to return her. She promised that the family would not press charges if the abductors left Pet in a public place, such as a shopping center where she could be safely found. Unfortunately, none of these efforts led to any breakthroughs. That is, until 9 days later, on the 31st of March, when the unthinkable happened. Pet's lifeless body was discovered back where it all began, her own bedroom. She was found wedged between the mattress and the foot of the bed. On the surface, this should have marked the end of the case. However, the circumstances surrounding her disappearance and sudden reappearance raised too many questions to ignore. How could an entire search operation involving professionals and highly trained dogs have missed a body in such an obvious place? More disturbingly, how did no one in the household notice the smell of decomposition? As one commenter on YouTube pointed out, "I found a body once. It was in a basement apartment, and we went to check on her due to a smell complaint. Flies were everywhere, and the smell was thick. It stuck to everything. She had been dead for 3 days in a hot and humid summer. There is no way that Pet was in that room for 9 days, and no one noticed. The smell of death gets everywhere." Had the room been sealed off immediately after Pet's disappearance, investigators might have chalked this up to incompetence. However, that was not the case. Over the 9 days, multiple people entered the room, including guests who even slept in the same bed where Pet was eventually found. Lizette herself gave an interview while sitting on the bed, completely unaware that her daughter's body was supposedly right beneath her. The only logical explanation for this oversight is that Pet's body was not in the room during the initial searches. Instead, it was placed there later, possibly by someone within the household. According to the official coroner's report, Pet had climbed onto the bed on her own and accidentally fallen headfirst into the gap between the mattress and the bed frame, where she asphyxiated before the nanny found her missing in the morning. However, overwhelming evidence contradicts this claim. From everything documented about this case, it strongly suggests a cover-up by authorities. It is possible that one or both parents were involved in Pet's death and orchestrated an elaborate scheme to divert suspicion. The excessive media coverage might have even been part of the plan, a way to manipulate public perception while hiding the truth. For this to succeed, someone high up in the justice system would have had to be complicit. Of course, all of this is merely speculation. No concrete evidence has ever surfaced to definitively prove that Pet's parents were involved in foul play. Without direct proof, we may never truly know what happened to Pet that night. Unless someone with inside knowledge decides to come forward, the truth will remain buried. But after 14 years, that possibility seems increasingly unlikely. Now, if the parents were responsible for this tragedy, they would not be the first to get away with such a crime, because something eerily similar happened in another infamous case. William Moult, a 40-year-old mortgage broker, mysteriously vanished on the evening of November 7, 1997, after a night out in Lantana, Florida. That evening, he had been at a nightclub, enjoying a quiet night before he called his girlfriend to let her know that he would be heading home soon. However, he never made it back, and what followed was a decades-long mystery that left his family with painful uncertainty. Despite extensive investigations, there were no significant leads, no evidence, and no witnesses who could explain his disappearance. His case eventually went cold, fading from public memory. For more than 2 decades, his fate remained unknown, until an unexpected discovery on Google Maps in the year 2019 brought long-awaited answers. On the night of his disappearance, William Moult left the nightclub alone at approximately 11 o'clock. Witnesses later reported that he did not appear intoxicated and seemed fully capable of driving himself home. He was last seen getting into his white 1994 Saturn SL, pulling out of the parking lot and heading toward his home. When he never arrived, his girlfriend became increasingly worried and reported him missing. Authorities launched an investigation, focusing on the roads he was likely to take. They searched tirelessly, following potential routes, looking for signs of an accident, and interviewing people who might have seen something. However, no significant evidence emerged. There was no indication of foul play, no suspicious activity, and no sign of his car or his whereabouts. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. As time passed, the case grew colder. Without any clues to work with, law enforcement had little choice but to move on. His name was added to the long list of missing persons, but without new developments, his story was largely forgotten. His loved ones, however, continued to hold on to hope, desperate for answers but receiving none. For 22 years, the question remained: what had happened to William Moult on that fateful night? In an astonishing turn of events, a breakthrough came in the year 2019 from an entirely unexpected source. A Google Earth user was casually browsing satellite images of Wellington, Florida, when they noticed something peculiar in a retention pond behind a residential neighborhood. Upon closer inspection, the user saw what appeared to be the outline of a submerged vehicle beneath the murky water. What was even more shocking was that the vehicle had seemingly gone unnoticed for years, despite its presence being visible in satellite imagery. Curious about the strange sighting, the individual decided to take action. They shared their findings with a local resident who, intrigued by the discovery, used a drone to get a closer look. The aerial footage confirmed their suspicions. There was indeed a car submerged in the pond. Realizing the significance of this find, the resident promptly contacted law enforcement. When authorities arrived at the scene, they wasted no time launching an investigation. Using specialized equipment, they retrieved the vehicle from the water. As it was pulled onto dry land, officers were met with a chilling sight: skeletal remains inside the car. Forensic specialists were called in to examine the bones and confirm their identity. After thorough testing, the remains were officially identified as belonging to William Moult, finally solving the decades-old mystery surrounding his disappearance. William Molt's story serves as both a reminder of life's unpredictability and a testament to the power of persistence and technology in uncovering the truth. Though he was lost for decades, he was never truly forgotten, and in the end, a simple satellite image provided the answer his family had been searching for all along.